Hello, my friends. Happy fall equinox. This is my Libra archetype astrological overview for Libra season because fall equinox is the beginning of the Libra solar cycle. So in this video, what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about this cycle, how I'm interpreting the energy and transmitting the energy to you. So I'll tell you a little bit about what I think this season is offering us and how to leverage this energy for your own life. I'll go through that, and then I'll talk about some practices that may serve you during this season, some support practices like how to use essential oils, and some breath work and energy practices that I think will be really helpful. And then towards the end, I will go through oracle card reading for each sun sign. You can do this for your sun sign or your rising or your moon sign, however you choose to interpret the messages. So that's what we'll do together during this time. And my hopes is this allows you to leverage the energy that's available to us, right? Whether you really follow astrology and you're very interested in it, it really doesn't matter. We're all connected. In nature, in these pivotal moments when we have equinoxes and solstices, are times to just pause, to feel the energy, to attune to what nature is allowing us to shift into, and to allow ourselves to work with the energy. Because when we work with the energy, we feel in better flow and synchronicity in our lives, and we're more connected to each other. So that's my intention for filming this. So let's get started. So first I want to break down for you a little bit about the Libra archetype and a little bit about the essentials of Libra so we can get a little bit more oriented to what the energy is shifting from. So we're going from an earth sign, Virgo, into an air sign. So Libra is an air sign. So air signs talk a lot or have a lot to do with communication, with breath, with movement, with how we're relating and speaking and communicating. So it's anything that feels air. It's our thoughts. It's what we say, our words. It's how things are transmitted. It's what we think about things, our philosophies in some ways, or the perspectives that we're choosing to take around something. Libra is also what we call our cardinal sign, which means these are signs that energy wants to be created. So these are in sometimes good times to start something new, to begin, to have a new insight, a new way of looking at something. So that's a little bit about the fundamentals of Libra. Also, it's ruled by Venus. So we have the Venusian qualities of love and beauty and aesthetics. Also, those things of like the inner relationship and the outer relationship. When we talk about Libra, we do highlight relationships are most certainly highlighted. Whereas when we have Taurus, more of the inner relationship between us and us. And with Libra, it's how the relationship between us and us is now mirrored and reflected back to us through others. And so relationships are going to be pretty core in the Libra archetype. So I want to talk a little bit about more the general themes about Libra in general, not specific to this time, although this is definitely inclusive of this, but I want to just give you some general themes that have to do with the Libra archetype. And that's themes of seeing two. There's always two sides to the story. We might argue there's 10 or 20 or 100 sides to a story, but it's really about seeing more than one. So a lot of times with the Libra energy, we have a desire for those creative debates or dialogues in which we're talking to someone that has a different point of view. Because when we do that, we learn, we exchange, able to in some ways talk ourselves into or out of perspectives that we're investigating. Also with Libra, we have a lot, as I said, to do with relationships, with trust. Who do we trust to be in these relationships? And with the Libra relationships, these don't necessarily have to be intimate ones, like ones in which like partnered, but it could be. But it's also people that maybe we work with long-term or long-term established friendships. These are relationships in which we want to go the extra mile with. These are people that we are trusted confidants or trusted people in which we want to exchange energy with. So this has a lot to do with what are our thoughts and views about how trust is demonstrated in these relationships. Who do we trust? What constitutes trust? And what kind of people are we in these types of bonded relationships with? Libra has a lot to do with the middle way. So not the extremes of the far left, the far right, but where's the middle ground in that? Or the black, the white, where's the gray in some ways? Libra is inviting us to see a little bit more of the middle ground. So whereas we might be overly zealous in our health, and then we might be on the other side of the spectrum, we don't even think about our health, right? Libra is like, how do we move to a more middle place so that, again, there's more collaboration? Collaboration is another principle of the Libra archetype. Harmonizing. How are we in harmony with our environment, with each other? How are we harmonizing and allowing ourselves to enjoy and to feel that kind of aesthetic connection to maybe the things in our environment, like the objects in our environment, the flowers, the plants, but also just harmony in the way of how we feel. Dialogue, debate, always wanting to talk through things, right? This is a good time to talk, to share information, communicate. And then we talked about relationships, but again, these balanced partnerships, or how are we attaining or trying to work towards these balanced partnerships, or partnerships in which the give and take is what I mean by that is that, we're always working in relationship to like, who's giving, who's receiving, what am I getting out of it? What are you getting out of it? But these types of themes. So this is a little bit about the Libra archetype. So just in general. And when I sat with this energy and intuited what is this energy translating for me, I believe the theme of this time is tipping the scales for amplified relating. Tipping the scales for amplified relating. And when I mean amplified relating, I mean we're relating at a higher frequency, a higher level. So our relationships take a higher level. We learn how to relate to ourselves, to each other, in a higher way of relating, where maybe we understand people, we have greater depth, we have greater, maybe how we reveal ourselves is at a greater level. So there's just an enhanced reciprocity, but also an enhanced experience of relationships. And that can be relationships in general, or it can be your relationship to life. But this enhanced and amplified relating, I think this is what Libra season is going to offer us, a shift and change into how do we do that? How do we have greater relationships that actually enhance our life, that actually allow us to be amplified? How do we have a greater amplification of our experience of life where we feel like we're in harmony with life? I think that is what the Libra cycle is going to work with us to do. All right, we got a little bit of foundation about Libra, a little bit of what this time's about. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my interpretation of how we can leverage the energy during this time. So if we think about amplified relating, what are the key ingredients that we might need for amplified relating? One of them is trust. If we want to have really good relationships, we have to trust the people that we're in relationship with. And what does trust mean for you? This is a good time to really define what constitutes a trustworthy relationship. Like, we might say we trust someone, but for you individually, how do you define that? I don't know if you've ever heard of Brene Brown's trust bank account. And she talks about this with her daughter's experience of losing trust with a schoolmate. And she talks about how, as we're learning how to trust someone, they're making deposits in the trust bank account. And many of us have maybe lower deposit rates, maybe minimum balances before we trust someone, and some of us might have higher, but it's important that we know what are those indicators that tell us, yeah, I can trust you, you're someone I want to invest in, and what are the red flags that might show us this person might need more time, or I need to test the relationship a little bit more before I fully invest and commit my time and energy and attention. So trust is needed, and our definition of trust is going to be really important for that. Openness is the next one. In order to have enhanced and amplified relationships, we have to be open to them, which means we have to be open. And that has to be a willingness to hear other people's perspectives. It's no fun to be in a relationship, or it's not really enhancing to be in one in which we are closed-minded and don't want to hear anything. If we're not willing to grow and be open to how someone's point of view might actually deepen our own understanding of what we believe and how we can learn and grow. Think of like the growth mindset. So openness is required. Along with that is sharing honestly. And I don't just mean being truthful, which is also, though, really important in building trust, and also being open is sharing honestly, but it's also being authentic. So it's not just that I tell the truth, because, I don't know about you, but I've been around a lot of people that just always just say whatever's on their mind, and that might be true, but how do we actually reflect through our words, through our relating, the authenticity of who we really are? Are we able to truly share ourselves by what we talk about, by the words we use? And are we doing that in a way that allows us to have amplified relationships? Respect is the next one. We need respect. And that respect for me is seeing the other as an equal. Even if you might have more knowledge than that person, or maybe you have more years of experience, how do we really look at another and see that they offer us something? If they're in our life, they're offering us something. And that's one of the biggest gifts to me of the Libra archetype, is realizing that you are another me, I'm another you, and you're allowing me to see a more enhanced vision or view of myself and my life. And so really that respect and honoring that even though this person, you may not even like them or you may not like talking to them, but there's something there for you. And if we really can see that each person has value and that we can respect and honor, even if we have differences. I think about this in the midst of our political culture right now with the election coming up. And even though we might be faced with talking or having communication with someone that's completely on the other end of the spectrum of who they support and why, how do we honor and respect them? Because they have too the right to have their own perspective. And how do we honor the differences, but also honor each person as sovereign, as able to make their own decisions, and we can respect them even if we disagree. And then collaboration, really to have relationships, that's kind of the reason we have them, is the collaboration, the collaborative efforts that we can do as we work with teams or as we work with a partner on something, or just when we collaborate, when we share what's going on with each other. Recently, I've had lots of conversation with other entrepreneurs just in trying to grow myself and learn. And it's so wonderful what I learn about different people's perspectives and how they go about running their businesses and how they go about finding clients and how they are articulating what they're passionate about and how they're choosing to share their talents. And we're not working together, but just in collaborating and sharing ideas, I get inspired. I learn something about myself. I go deeper. So these are what's needed for relationships. There's probably more things, but those are the ones I want to talk about: trust, openness, respect, sharing honestly, and collaboration. So for these amplified relating, these are the topics that you might want to explore with yourself. Like maybe it's a checklist right now and you're kind of going, how open am I to hearing others' perspectives? How am I sharing honestly? What does that look like for me? How do I have respect for the people that I'm choosing to be in relationships with? And how open am I to collaboration? And am I able to open myself to explore with others what they're doing and why? Okay, so let's talk about the mechanism for how these key ingredients need to be woven into the tapestries of our life. And that's 3 steps. The first step for me is that it always starts within. If we want amplified relationships, we can't have them if the relationship with self has not first been solidified. So think about this. How can I have really deep, intimate relationship with anyone in my life if I'm not even deeply aware of my own needs, of who I am as a person, of what's going on with me? If I don't, then what I'm doing is a lot of mirroring for each other. We'll do a lot of projecting off, or oftentimes we just feel a lot of the external energy coming in and defining for us. So know that it starts within. So developing that trust within yourself, the openness within yourself to learn about you, being honest and sharing with yourself how you're feeling, what you're thinking, who you are, respecting and honoring you, your own values, and collaborating, right? In collaboration, it's really about sharing ourselves and really owning who we are. So it starts within. So if any of these key ingredients you feel could use a little bit of extra time or attention, this is a great time to realize that if they're missing from your relationships, they're probably missing within your own personal practice. The second procedure, the process step that we might want to remember is that if you can spot it in another, you got it. So if you spot it, you got it. And the Libra archetype is so wonderful for the mirroring that others provide for us. So I like to give this analogy because Aries and Libra are polar signs. So in Aries, we're like, I don't care what anyone else is doing. I'm doing me. I want what I want. I'm going for it. And if we lived on a desert island and we were by ourselves, we would only know ourselves through what we could see, what we were willing to understand, we're kind of in our bubble. Once we get in relationship, and everyone knows this is what our family is good for, is what any type of relationship is good for. we see different sides of ourselves. What gets reflected back? Or we see ourselves behaving in ways, or we notice things about ourselves that we wouldn't notice if we didn't have people around us. So relationships are the ultimate mirrors. And so everything we see in another, everything from when we feel envious or we feel judgment towards someone or we really dislike what they're doing, there is something that it's reflecting within us. And so if we really can depersonalize at times the triggering effects that people have on us and realize, what is this revealing about maybe something shadow within myself, something that I want to reject, something that I'm not willing to say that I want, something that I don't recognize and see that I already am, right? These are all ways in which we get to have a bigger perspective of ourselves. So remember, during this month, if you spot it, you got it. So this takes us out of that judgment, out of that blame, out of that victim, and it allows us to step back into our power to say, what is this showing me? What's here for me? And the third, to have amplified relationships, the third process that we have to go through is we have to have a balanced nervous system. If we are not able to really feel that we are out of fight or flight, that we're in a more balanced autonomic nervous system, where we actually do get afraid and fearful and amplified when we need to be, when there is actual danger, and we're able to calm and reset and rest and digest when we're not, we can't really have amplified relationships. Let me give you some examples of this. Have you ever tried to gain perspective and clarity in the midst of a debate where you're highly triggered? It's just not the time to reason things out because emotions are amplified. We're generally on two sides of the fence with someone. I'm right, no, you're right, all of these things. It generally doesn't go well. We don't have clarity. And think about that. That's an amplified nervous system. We come to resolution with others. We can see kind of, I see what you're experiencing. Maybe that's not what I meant to happen, but I can understand from a place of balanced nervous system when we reset, when we drop out of that fight or flight or that reactivity. Another example is if we don't really know ourselves, if we're in a protective place because we feel insecure or unstable, we really can't share or be seen. We're really going to be very protective, very close-minded, because that's what the nervous system does when it feels protective, when it feels fearful. It generally will cause us to behave in more primal or more less evolutionary ways. And another one is if we aren't able to model, be at a balanced state to really choose our responses, we end up relying on others to tell us what to do, define for us things that we should define for ourselves. We end up doing things like people pleasing to get what we want, or to be seen in ways that we want to do, or we force our way, or we expect others to do for us in relationships what we don't do. So we really need that balanced nervous system to see clearly, to see the truth of things, to be more open, to be less biased, to gain the wisdom that's there for us in all relationships, even the ones that we struggle with tremendously. So those are the 3 steps. So we got to start within. We got to realize that relationships are beautiful mirrors. And even though, of course, we're going to get triggered and of course we're going to feel feelings, and that doesn't invalidate our feelings, other people are mirrors, and that we have to be in good relationship with knowing where are we in our nervous system. Am I triggered? Am I in fight or flight? Am I being protective and closed-minded? And am I shutting down? Because if I am, I'm not in a place to have those enhanced relationships. And I'm going to need to work to regain that stability before I can really reach out to others. Otherwise, people won't ever be able to deliver for us what we desire because we're not able to do that for ourselves. So that's a little bit about what I feel that this time is going to be for. We're going to be working on our relationships, to put it really simply. We're going to be allowing ourselves to up-level how we respond to people, how we listen, how we show up. And the cool thing about when we do this, when we start to see that, life is bringing us people so that we can grow and so that we can learn and relate in different ways, we get more out of the relationships we have. We're able to find new relationships that also enhance us. And this really changes the way we see our life, the way we feel more supported in life. It really helps us receive more because there's more for us, because we're open. With our hands, we're open to let it in. So I want to talk a little bit about the oils that I think would be really helpful during this time for the key ingredients I talked about. The first oil, and I'm going to go through these and tell you where I'd use them, and if you were to use them, what I would use them with or for. I'm going to put the links in the video to Monara, which is where I purchase my oils. I'm very close to the owner, and I truly believe in what they're doing. I would appreciate you supporting me by using those links, because those are my affiliate links. And if you would like to order them for me at a discount, you can email me and I'll order for you and extend you a 15% discount. Okay, the first oil I'm going to talk about is bergamot. This is one of my favorite oils. Bergamot for me is going to allow you to get that more balanced perspective, to allow you to be open to more listening, to just allow the mind to quiet a bit. I'm going to give you that opportunity for deeper presencing. So bergamot is an amazing scent. So I would put a drop into my pinky fingers, and I would put it at point Shen Men. You can Google this point if you've never used it. And I would just use a light touch, and I would just hold it there for 1 to 3 minutes and just allow your brain to relax. This allows the energy of the left and the right hemispheres to really balance out. It takes us out of that surface mind, which is all about the chatter and the worry and the anxiety, and really drops us into a deeper presence. I love to use this oil before I do breath work. So you could either just sniff or diffuse this oil, and you could do some breath work, which is going to be one of the other tools that I'm going to recommend for this time. Okay, second oil, rose geranium. This is going to invite in a little bit more of the feminine. That's our Venus influence. Whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter. Geranium rose helps us receive. It really helps us receive from life, receive from the relationships, really know how to nourish ourselves from within. You know, I talked about cultivating those key ingredients within. This really helps us open to how we can resource ourselves, how we can kind of move out of the trauma of not receiving. So no matter whatever happened in your childhood or whatever your relationship story is, this allows you to open more to how you can receive in life through others, through your own nourishment. So rose geranium, I would put a light drop on one of your fingers and hold it at your navel. Again, our umbilical cord, the place where we receive nourishment for our mother. So this can be a great place for healing mother wounds of not feeling supported and nourished by life. You could also do this as just sniffing this and then doing some just deep breathing or just presencing. Kind of imagine yourself opening to life. Be another great way to use this oil. Okay, the third one, Clary Sage. I love Clary Sage when I feel like I'm in a polarizing paradigm, when I'm really in the I'm right, the other person's wrong, or I'm being really black and white with myself. I'm only able to find my faults, or I'm only able to find what's going wrong in life. I find that Clary Sage is a good balancer of polarity. So I like to use this because, you know, Libra, again, it's about the middle way. It's about finding those places of intersection. So even with a person that we're like, there's nothing we have in common, how do we find those intersections that allow us to relate? Because this is still a human in front of you, right? This is still a person that experiences pain, that has longings and desires, that wants to show up in their best way. So how do we find those intersections that allow us to connect? So Clary Sage, I would put a drop of this on my third eye, or I would just sniff it. Maybe before you're about to have a conversation with someone that you tend to, kind of irritate each other, or you tend to be, maybe it's before family. Take a sniff of this. It's really great if before doing some journaling. So let's say you feel really caught up in something and you want a different perspective. Put some of that oil on and then do some journaling. Okay, the next one, Cedarwood Atlas. I love this one for really harmonizing, for trusting. A lot of us have lots of reasons we could give for why we don't trust life, why we think that life's unfair, or we haven't had what we needed, or whatever our stories are, right? Of why we can't trust people. Maybe we've had a lot of issues in our life in which we don't really trust people in relationships because we've been hurt, or we don't trust life to deliver for us. Cedarwood, to me, the internal scaffolding it creates, to me, it's like this deep, steady returning to earth, returning to our bodies, returning to a level of just intimacy with the earth, with ourself, and just with those basic trust of like, I trust that I'm getting exactly what I need. I trust that there's something here for me. I trust that it's safe for me to open. And in this moment, I'm held by forces that maybe I don't understand. So I would take a drop of cedarwood and put it on the soles of my feet. I like right where if you were to kind of lift your foot up, there's a natural little kind of divot between your medial arch and the toes. Just put it wherever you're intuitively drawn, cedarwood, or sniff it and just take some deep breaths in presence with yourself. Okay, last oil. I'm giving you, 5 oils? Laurel. I love Laurel if I feel like my perspective is a little of the defeatist, I'm kind of feeling like beat up by life, or I'm not able to see in some ways how this is benefiting me. The Victorious Seer, I like to put Laurel on my third eye, and I like to allow this for me to see that there's opportunity always, that I get to rewrite the story of how this is unfolding, and that I can choose perspectives and stories and narratives that don't make anyone have to be a loser, right? That there isn't a debate in which I win or lose, or a situation in which I win or lose, that there's a situation in which there's always wisdom and truth for me and the other. So I love this one when I want to embody a more inspiring narrative. Okay, so these are how I'd use the oils. Again, you can put them directly on your body. You can just sniff them. You can diffuse them. You can call them in if you don't have the oils. I do like to always mention dilute them, like 50% or at least 25% if you're not used to using essential oils and you're not sure if you would have a reaction. Remember, the oils provide the quickest energy shift so that you can, instead of trying to get to a state, you can attune and allow the medicine of the oils to allow you to naturally shift and have that state more readily available for you. So when you're trying to cultivate this trust and openness, respect, sharing, that you can allow these oils to be guides. So I call them in as guides, and I say, show me, Geranium, how to receive. Show me, Laurel, what's here for me. Show me how to be more open. So that's how I use the oils. Okay, so those are some of the practices with essential oils. Now I want to talk about some of the other practices that I think throughout the month. These could start to be some of your routines, like something that you do every day during this month to really leverage the energy. Breathwork. Now you may not be a yoga or a yogini, a yoga practitioner, but breath work is one of the quickest ways, again, just like the oils, that we can shift our state of being away from the surface mind, which is always looking for danger, threats, always critical, always looking for the fear, into a state of more openness and balance. Again, calming that nervous system. As the breath, so the mind. So this allows us to allow our mind to slow, to be more open and expansive, and to be more connected to that universal intelligence. Any type of breath work is always great. The one I'm going to recommend this month is a balanced breath. So you would breathe in 4 to 5 counts, maybe longer. You would hold, relaxing, 4 to 5 counts. You would exhale 4 to 5 counts and hold with the breath out for 4 to 5 counts. I love this box breathing, and I like to do a mudra with it where I let my hands turn in like this, and I hold them at about the level of the diaphragm, relax my arms, and I just kind of hold that mudra. You can also hold prayer hands and do that breath work. I mean, just 1 to 3 minutes, friends, and that can really change your state tremendously. It really can. So anytime I'm feeling caught up in worry or just narratives that aren't helpful, or I feel like I need to have a conversation with someone and I really want to have a balanced, open perspective, that's what I do. I do breath work. I do breath work when I feel stressed or I feel overly mental about something. It's an amazing practice. Another practice that I have is, and I'm going to work on it myself this month, is my relationships to stillness and presencing. We are always moving. We're always taking things in. We're always oftentimes exerting. And so much of the presencing is where we find our clarity, our truth, where wisdom can come in. Nothing can come in if we're in constant motion, if we're in constant taking. Things are not allowing ourselves to integrate. Let's just say that. So set a timer for 5 minutes and just sit, be present, notice how you're thinking. What are your thoughts without following them? What does your heart say? How do you feel? What is your body telling you? Just notice. You don't have to do anything about it. Just notice. Just sit and be present. How am I showing up in this moment? What's happening for me? I can't tell you how much this benefits your relationships, to actually know yourself, to actually be able to hold presence for yourself. Because again, my next practice, you can't do this effectively if you don't know how to do it with yourself. So can you make it a point to set a timer for 5 to 10 minutes every day and just be present with yourself? Just slow down, just give yourself a moment to tune in and tune out with the voices, with the world. Do it in nature. Do it with an oil. Okay, my third practice is listening. You can do this with yourself when you're presencing, when you're pausing, but really listening. How many times, and we've all heard it, don't listen to respond, listen to understand. But do we really do it? Like, do we really take the time to listen to someone, to actually hear what they're transmitting on an energetic level, on a level of how do they feel? What's happening for them? Like seeing them as a human? Like really, how do we get out of the preoccupation of what this means for me and really just listen? Really just validating the person as a human and validating their experience, even if we don't agree with it or like it. It's such a gift to be really heard and listened to. It's one of our most basic needs as a human. So listening. This month, how do you up-level your listening? I might film a couple other videos on active listening because it's one of those things that I just feel like I need a constant practice with, because when we're in a rush, when we're moving fast, when we're not really present, it's so easy to not really hear what someone's communicating. And it might not be that we miss their words, but what are they really communicating? It makes a difference. So listening. Can you listen to yourself this month? Can we listen to others more deeply, more reverently? I promise it makes a huge difference when we do. So that's a little bit of the practices of how I would work with this. I do want to say, I want to put this in about how we're going to go into the week, because Libra cycle starts today. It goes through October 22nd. But I do want to say a little bit about the first part of the cycle, because as the sun moves into Libra, it's going to be aspecting and the south node of the moon, which is in Libra, which means that we're going to have the chance to repattern, which means we will most likely be put up against many of the patterns in others that we're trying to resolve within ourselves, which means our tendencies that are not helping us have amplified relationships. So it might be patterns of always being argumentative or needing to be right or looking to others for approval, people pleasing, all the behavioral patterns in relationships that we might each have that cause us to not have these relationships that we want. So know that the first part of the month is some repatterning. So look out for the shadow sides of Libra, which entail codependency, the playing it nice, like to keep the peace, like, I'm just not going to say anything because if I do, we're going to get in a fight or it will be uncomfortable. Watch for that tendency, right, of not really sharing, not being open, politeness, keeping the peace. In relationships, are we overdoing the yin when we're not showing up fully, not really sharing, not being authentic, or are we not open to receiving? Are we muscling and holding more weight than we need to? Are we debating to win? Are we forcing our ways? How is our relationship to receiving, to allowing life to give to us, to allowing others to give to us? How are we seeing a biased story in which nothing ever good happens, or the stories that we're telling in which we're defeatist? That's going to be coming up for us the first week. So watch that. We're having a lot of the personal planets in air and water, which means, again, paying attention to how we feel is going to be important, because how we feel is telling us what we're thinking about, and which is telling us these patterns. So if we know that we're not feeling a certain way, or we're feeling states that are not helping us have those amplified relationships, what needs to shift within the way we're viewing it? What needs to shift in the way we're communicating? What do we need to do for ourselves? That's some good things to think about this week as we move into this first week of the cycle. So I did want to say that, because the shadow side of Libra is real, right? And within every relationship, there's the things we love and the things we don't love. And instead of just pointing at that and being this person or this thing, look within, right? Remember, it starts within. If you spot it, you got it. Presence with yourself. Spend some time reflecting on the patterns that you know in your life that have not worked for you. Like, I'll share it personally. In my life, I'm learning how to trust a little slower, how to let people really, really show up fully before I make evaluations and not just trusting everyone that comes in. I'm also learning how to receive more, how not to muscle my way through and to do all the work. So those are two of the things that I know I have to be really cautious of, because those are my patterns. And if I'm not present with myself, I repeat them. Okay. So now I'm going to move into the part where I'm going to do the oracle card readings for each of the signs. So for Libra cycle, these are the oracle cards that I have drawn for each of the signs. I'm going to have to kind of move around a little bit to do this. I'm going to start with Aries, and this is some of the things that you can think about in light of our theme of tipping the scales for more amplified relating. So these are the questions, and this is the energy you want to bring to that, to everything I just said. Okay? Aries, the card I drew for you was Rain Purification. Am I focused on what I want most? I feel in this way, two things come to me. One is that there might need to be a purification of the relationships in your life. Sometimes we keep people around that are showing us maybe things that we need to shift and change. And if we can make those shifts and changes, maybe those people don't have as much time in our schedule. So there could be a purification of one, the people. But remember, the people don't shift until we shift. So you can't just X out people without doing any of your work, because then nothing changes. So am I focused on what I want most? In my life, what you focus on grows. Ask yourself, is my life a reflection of my values, or do I need to make adjustments or prioritize? When we're focused on what we truly want and we look inside and we say, how am I preventing this, or how can I do more of those things that allow that to be? I find with others, if someone's not doing something for me that I really want, I ask myself, how am I being a blocker to that, or how am I not open to receiving that, right? So let me give you an example. If I want people to do a little bit more for me because I always do more for them, do I slow down enough to give them space to show up, or am I too quick to the jump that there's no space for that? So again, sometimes we have to look at it's the shift within us. All right, Aries. Taurus, here's your message. We got Lake Stillness. Taurus, you're generally pretty good at the stillness and the sweetness of life, but this might be a little bit more stillness. And then, am I in my head or in my heart? So maybe the stillness is defined by that. Because when we are still, oftentimes what we need to do is check in with the heart. And not just what the mind says, but our feeling. One of the practices I love is what's my head doing? What's my heart saying? What's my body? Check in with all three. Realizing too that the heart doesn't judge. The heart doesn't really have a good or bad. The heart communicates wisdom. And sometimes when we're in our head too much, the voices that we hear and the projections that we have and the interpretations of life are coming from fear, or they're coming from past dialogues. And really all we need to be is our heart. And when we're in our heart, when we see who we are and we allow ourselves to soften to ourselves, we also soften how we see people, and we don't take it so personally what others are doing. So maybe more stillness and evaluating this month. What's talking right now? Is this my head or my heart? Gemini, you got tree and grounding. Gemini, this is a good one for you because Geminis are always on the move, right? You move fast, you think a lot, you're very adaptable. What is the most limiting belief keeping me from what I want right now? I find that when we ground and we steady, it becomes really obvious, those limiting beliefs, because those limiting beliefs take us out of our steadiness and our security of who I am, because they make us feel limited. They make us feel like we're cut off from the source of abundance, from the source of grace. And so really the way to know if it's a limiting belief is to first get grounded and feel it, and then keep asking those questions like, what is this coming from? This might be a time to ground and really get curious about the beliefs and the perspectives that you're taking on things, and notice what their roots are. So the grounding might be, what are the roots of this belief or this thought that I have? Is it true? So Gemini, this month, know that when we move out of those limited thinking and those beliefs, we oftentimes can see completely different the people in our lives and the opportunities and relationships. Cancer, you got the Summer Solstice Radiance card. This card for me is all about really being yourself, like shining, like being so lit up by who you are because you know yourself so well that everything you do has a radiance to it because it's so real, it's so authentic. And you need less validation from others, which is interesting when we really are radiant within ourselves. Your question is, do I know all my strengths and am I using them? Part of the gift of presencing and listening is to really know ourselves more deeply so that we can share more deeply who we are. And when we are able to share that, really others can then be supported by it. We can collaborate differently. So this is time to shine, Cancer. This is time to show up in relationships, letting people see you. letting people see your radiance, really seeing yourself in that. So how often do you acknowledge your strengths and have the courage to share them? It doesn't matter how you are in comparison to others. It's really, who are you? It doesn't matter if there's better people that you think. It's not about that. Be you. Be you in relationship, and other people will see you. Leo, love and compassion. Again, Leo, you are this sign. For you, when was the last time I danced freely? I feel for this one, two things. One is that, can you see everything through the eyes of love? So anything in your life that feels like, oh, like you're bound to it, or that feels like it doesn't feel very loving and compassionate coming towards you, how do you see it through the eyes of love? How do you see yourself through the eyes of love? And some of the easiest ways to connect into love is doing things that light us up, that feel joyful. It's like dancing when you don't have a reason to dance. I recently did a post about a man that shows up every day at my daughter's school, and he just walks and he just like waves to everyone that drives by. And I mean, for no reason. Like, I don't even think he has a student there. He looks older. I don't even think he has a high school student. When we do things that just elicit joyfulness, that is the highest that we get, the closest we can get to love. And when we get close to love, and then the compassion naturally pours through us to self, to others. So again, more of the things that allow you to lighten yourself up, to get you connected to your heart, then there's so much wisdom there, Leo. So much wisdom there. Okay, Virgo, you got rainbow blessings. This card for me is all about, rainbows often follow a lot of rain or storms or darkness. And sometimes in those times we think like it's not working, or why is this not going well, or what did I do wrong? It's like a way of seeing that everything has a cycle, for one, and two, there's always blessings in all of these things. I was just reading a story the other day about how it was telling you a story of this man, and I guess he lost his whole family when he was very young, his mom, his dad. I don't know if he had siblings, I can't remember the story, and then later on you learn it's Pope John Paul. So in extreme hardship, he still found a way to receive the blessing of what happened. Not to say that that's an equal exchange, but that blessings still come. Blessings are always making their way there. What are the dominant emotions that run my life? I think it's important to know that if we are caught up in the more negative emotions, if we're holding on to those, that it's hard to see the blessings. That doesn't mean we don't feel those emotions. It doesn't mean we don't make space for them, but it does mean that if we can't offer them in some ways, or see that these are in some ways sometimes just the necessary parts of life in order for us to continue to move, to receive what it is that life is giving us, even if it seems unfair, unjust. I think being in touch with those emotions, that presencing, really helps us realize what those emotions might tell us, so that we can see the blessings of it, because even the hard emotions have blessings. They really do. So look for these, and other people might be triggering those for you this month. So look for the emotions that others trigger from you, because they might just be helping you get those out. Okay, Libra, this is your month. You get wind activation. You know, air is a very activating element. It activates change. It activates new ideas, new perspectives. So does my life have more room for pleasure and play? You know, oftentimes, we have to make room for it. You know, we have to change how we think. We have to change our receptivity. We have to prioritize different things. So when we make room, when we literally clear out and make room for more pleasure and play, it's amazing how more pleasure and play have space to come in. So how do you play more in your relationships? How do you gamify them? How do you again use that air to make space for the good stuff to come in? Scorpio, you got eagle and communion. So, you know, a lot of times we have communication with each other. That's a way, but also nature communicates to us, spirit communicates to us. And it's so much easier to hear that when we are quiet and we have space for that to come in as well. What is my body telling me right now? Yeah, important things, you know, communication with our body. Our body does communicate. We are in relationship with our body. So this might be a really good month to notice where the body is helping you enhance your relationships to your body, to the what you put in your body, to the way people feel in your body, right? There's so much information that's coming to us besides the words. So this might be a month to hearing the subtle energies. And Scorpio, you're good at that. So pay attention to those subtle energies. So it's not just the words. The body keeps score and it doesn't lie. And commune with those intelligent forces, nature, the sun, the stars, the plants. They communicate too. Sagittarius, you got tsunami wake-up call. So wake-up call, this card generally comes when there's going to be an event or something, and this is not to invoke fear, but sometimes we take events, and the second card I got is, what else could this mean? There's always, that's what I love about Libra, there's always more than one way to tell a story. So something that might be happening bad, that you might term as bad or negative, could be actually the start of something really great. Like maybe that job you didn't get wasn't a bad thing. Maybe that was actually clearing space for what really does need to come, or an epiphany about what you really want. So there could be a wake-up call, but it may not be what you think it is. So take that time to gain other perspectives. This is where sometimes it's helpful to talk to people, because sometimes people have a perspective that helps us see a little larger, especially if we're kind of entrenched in the feeling. Capricorn, you got iceberg submerged. This one kind of makes sense for Capricorn, because you guys sometimes put your feelings aside to get to work, to be responsible, to be the dutiful one. And this is the time to maybe let some of that psychic debris of burying feelings, let them come through, because those feelings might need to just be let go of, or might need to allow us to see what it is that we're keeping from ourselves. To whom am I comparing myself right now? I notice when I compare myself, people, that's when I'm not feeling really steady within myself. That's when I have a limiting belief from which I'm operating from, or where I'm not feeling good enough for me. And that's the opportunity to shore that up, because if I don't shore that up, I'm always going to find a limitless number of people that I think are doing it better, smarter, better, faster, richer. And it's never really a game of comparison. It's really, how do we feel worthy inside? And the only way we do that is to know ourselves, and to be with ourselves, and to do those practices I was saying for ourselves. Care about yourself. So this is a month to really notice when that shows up for you in relationship, when you notice yourself comparing. And this is a really good time to celebrate the things you are good at, to really see yourself clearly, and to really wonder, why do I need to compare? What am I looking for? How do I validate myself? Okay, Aquarius, you got spring equinox rebirth. So, the spring equinox happens in March, the beginning of the of the astrological new year, Aries. So this is about new desires coming through. This is also about birth. So creativity. What am I grateful for right now? Gosh, some of the best way to birth new ideas and to allow yourself to be abundant is to be grateful. Especially when we want new things, we sometimes think that if I want it, the quickest way is to go after it, when really it can be to be grateful for what you have. Because if you're super grateful for what you have, the universe has to give you more. Has to give you more. Because that's the vibration that you're sending out, is I have so much, I have so much, I have so much. So with what you're pursuing, can you try gratitude as a practice to get it first, not necessarily the yang approach? Because remember, this is a month on receiving. This is a month of seeing how much is reborn when we're just able to see how much is already there. Last but not least, my Pisces. Stone people, vigilance. Am I focused on what I am losing or what I'm gaining? So I think with stone people, this card is a lot about paying attention. So I don't think it in hypervigilance of being like, oh, I'm just so paranoid, but I think of it as being aware of where your attention goes, because where your attention goes, your energy flows. So paying attention to the narrative. Remember, we're talking about perspective this month, the narrative that's happening for you. Are you focused on what you're losing? Because that's a mindset of lack. It's a mindset that will cause more to go out. Are you focusing on what you're gaining? Even what you've gained in the last little bit. So in relationships, what are you getting? Are you focused on what you're not getting or what you are getting? That's a really beautiful way to get more out of relationships is, again, what am I focused on? If we focus on what's not present, we get more of that. If we focus on what is present, we open our heart and we find that there's already so much there. All right, friends, the card I drew for all of us, just the general theme, was shape-shifting. And with Libra, with an air sign, we get to shape-shift. So part of this energy of tipping the scales is being willing to do things differently, being willing to see through new eyes, being willing to tell a new story, being willing to reframe some of the things that we've maybe framed a certain way. So I think this is a great month for us to try things out. Try listening in relationships differently. Try on being more still, slowing down, receiving more. What can it hurt? Try it on. Okay. Wow, this is a long one. I hope this is helpful for you, friends. This is a big month. We're in such potent times, friends. And really, what I found is less is more oftentimes. The sitting, the presencing, the listening. So much is there when we save so much energy when we just really open to receive what's already here. The wisdom that's available to us right now. So let's all take in that yin approach of receiving, of slowing down, of listening, of appreciating, of cultivating within all these things that we want to see externalized, right? It starts within. So blessings to you in this Libra season. May we tip the scales towards more enhanced relating to each other, to ourselves, to life. Yeah, let's do it. I think we can. Blessings to you.